Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all in the online refresher course in chemistry on behalf of Dr. Jagdish Joshi, Professor, Director, UGC HRDC, and Dr. Dilip Vasawa, Assistant Professor, Refresher Course Coordinator, HRDC, Department of Chemistry, Gujarat University. Welcome you all in the next session, which is dedicated to Dr. Indranee Banerjee, Associate Professor and Dean, School of Nanosciences, Central University of Gujarat. She actively contributed with us in first online refresher course in chemistry last year. But unfortunately, due to the novel coronavirus pandemic, she is not with us today. And the lecture is in the memories of late Dr. Indranee Banerjee. She was Commonwealth Academic Fellow, Boys Cast Fellow, CAT Fellow, DST Young Scientist. Her research area was plasma processing of materials, flexible electronics and device fabrication, nano-bio interface interaction. She was very active in research with more than 50 research articles, 8 book chapters, 7 projects, 6 accolades, and many more. With these memories, let's have glimpse of her lecture. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So today we would be discussing on introduction of nanostructured materials. Myself, Dr. Indranee Banerjee, Associate Professor at Dean, School of Nanosciences, Central University of Gujarat. And this is my email address. If at all anybody wish to discuss or have any ideas to share with, exchange ideas, then I'm always available on this email address. So before we go to the complete discussions of the nanostructured materials, let us give a timeline of how this nanosciences came into the existence. It is in 1959 that Richard Feynman had proposed, saying that there is plenty of rooms at the bottom. And in 1960s, you can see that Kuhn published a treatise on ultrafine particles. It is wonderful that in 1980s, new techniques started emerging, and Glitter consolidated these nanosciences and the nanotechnologies in 1989. Whereas in 1990, it was much more popularized. People started thinking using the nanostructured materials for the technologies. And in 2000, if you see over here, scientists are clustering under the clusters. So you can see that clustering around the clusters is basically what the whole world is actually trying and doing as of now in every fields of technology, in every fields of industries, every fields like bio, even if in the bio, in the semiconductors, in the photonics, everywhere we can see, even the optical fibers, electronics, the nanoscience and technology is basically what we are coming across. So to give the concept of science and its characterizations, it is very important, like what are the characterization tools. As you know that the bulk materials, we the human have got certain limitations to visualize the things. And that is the human eye. We say that whatever we can see is because of the lens that we are having in our human eyes. So you can see the if we go to the dimensions of the materials, the humans comes out 10 to the power of 0 m, that is the meter we can see, and then gradually if we go from the macro scale to the micro scale and to the nanoscale, ultimately in the subatomic levels also, if you see the water molecules or the atoms is in the angstroms, that is 10 to the power of -10 meter. And you can see the bacteria or the viruses, if you see the bacteria is still in 10 to the power of -6 meters, whereas for the viruses it is 10 to the power of -7. The whole world is basically now under the pandemic of the coronavirus, so we need to know the dimensions of these viruses over here and what exactly the tools tools that we can make use of for diagnosis of these materials. As you see the naked eyes, we can go till the ants, even till the some kind of the microscope, optical microscopes, we can see the red blood cells, the human sperm cells, human egg cells and all those stuff. Whereas you can see the electron and the scanning probe microscopes are now coming into the picture, which can diagnose these diameters of the carbon nanotubes, diameters of the DNA double strands, water molecules, the atoms, that is atomic force microscope. So you can see that here that we are here when we talk about the characterizations of the nanoparticles, characterizations of any nano devices, we have to make use of these electrons and the scanning probe microscopes for that. Now, what are the basic models? Now, from the physics point of view, it is very important that gradually it came from classical theory, then the quantum theory, because without quantum theory, the Newtonian laws were not being able to use for finding out the dynamics of these particles. So you can see that the models basically we can use is still this 10 to the power of 5 or 10 to the power of minus 4. You can see where we can make use of the classical mechanics, whereas the quantum mechanics comes into the picture when the dimensions is in the nano levels. So it is very important that we need this chart itself explains you about the concepts of the dimensions, concepts of the tools or the characterization techniques. It is not that we can only synthesize the nanoparticles, we only synthesize the things, or we cannot diagnose it. So you can see the tools that we are using here and also the models which can be used to make the theoretical calculations, to make every dynamics, to understand the dynamics of these materials. Now coming to the nanoscience, once we have said that it is a timeline that gradually the nanoscience, nanostructured materials comes into the picture, then we have said the dimensions, that what materials having what dimensions. Then we come to the fact of the characteristics of the materials. Again, it is a slide which gives us like what is the contributions. As you see that when we all know about the bulk materials, whatever we see are basically the bulk materials, but when the bulk materials come concised way and we just decrease, we go down to the smaller and smaller size of these bulk materials, then the characteristics are basically different and gradually the volumetric goes up to the surface, and the surface forces, surface characterizations are more dominant than that of the bulk characterizations or the volumetric characterizations, and we see that the quantum effects of the cluster molecules actually comes into the picture, comes into the actions. So the number of atoms, if you see, is that if the class A molecules, class A materials, if you see, whose diameters is more than 1 micrometer, the atoms number, you can see it is about more than 10 to the power of 11. Whereas if we go gradually down, if it's less than 1 nanometer, it reduces to 10 to the power of 2, and the contribution is more structural and the characteristics is like the cluster of molecules. So this is a very fundamental slide, I must say, which gives you the concept why we are so much after this nano materials, why we are trying to reduce the whole world into a small size. You can see here that this is what the surface area increases, however the volume is constant. If you see here, this is a 1 meter cubic, 1 meter of the side cubic material. If you see, the body has an area of 6 square meters. If you say here, because of the 6 phases that it is having, then gradually if we just divide it into, like we are making the sectional divisions of it into the 4 parts or even the 6 parts or even the 8 parts, then gradually we are increasing the area, we are increasing the surface area, and we are keep going out, you can see that we are gradually increasing the surface area, but the volume, the content of the volume remains the same. So physical and geometrical interplay coming into picture, you can see this is a bulk material which goes to the nanoparticles. We are minimizing the size, then it can go to clusters, and this clusters goes to the molecules, and the molecules goes to the atoms. So this is how we can reduce the size, increasing the surface, volume remaining the same. So you can see that nanoparticles is the name given to the nano-sized particles formed by few atoms or the clusters. So you can see the atomic structure. If you see what actually is happening to the atomic structure, we see that 50% or more of the atoms are situated in the core of the defects. Now see, when I have shown here what exactly I am doing, I am dividing this part by part, and you can see these are the boundaries which are increasing. These are the boundaries which are actually increasing. So number of the boundaries. So if you consider the particle and we are reducing, keeping the constant volume, then what exactly I am doing is that I am increasing the boundaries. I am increasing the boundaries within the same volume. So you can see that the high density of the grain boundaries starts originating when we minimize the size of the system. Then you can see that this is a beautiful picture where we can see the grain boundaries are originating. These boundaries are actually playing the very important role in deciding the properties of these nanomaterials. So you can see that 30% of the atoms reside at the boundaries. Thus the surface energy increases. As the energy increases, you can see that participating reactions, the energy will be utilized, and thus the reactivity increases. So importance of the nanoparticles, whatever I have discussed till now, the importance of these nanoparticles could be categorized in the three parts, that is the surface effects, volume effects, and of course miniaturizing of the device. So you can see that, let's start with the surface effects. What exactly I mean by the surface effects is that the surface to volume ratio increases. So you can see that we all know it's a very simple concept. Basically it is one of the simplest concepts that we need to understand here, is that the surface area is 4 pi r square, and the volume is, if we consider the particle to be of spherical morphology, then the volume is 4/3 pi r cube. So the surface to volume is 3 upon r. Now you can see I have already made you understand through this concept that how we are increasing the surface, ideally in terms of the mathematics we are actually increasing for spherical if we consider 3 upon r. So you can see that S upon V is 3 upon r. So as the r reduces, S increases, keeping the V constant. So this is you can say the most important concept that the nanomaterials, nanoparticles, or the nanoscientists have to be concerned about, that what exactly we are trying to do. We are trying to activate the surface, keeping the volume constant, and that is why the grain boundary, everything is happening because of this surface to volume ratio. So the total energy, if we consider, as I have said, how the reactivity increases, so the total energy is EI plus of ES, where EI is the volumetric contribution and ES is the surface contribution. So you can see that per unit volume, if we are concerned about the total energy of the system, then we can see if this be the internal energy, this the interfacial energy per unit volume, and these are all there. You can see this term makes a huge difference to the reactivity of the materials. So you can see that we always say that what exactly we are gaining out of this increasing reactivity It is that the most important thing, most important concern as of now, or maybe like every time, is that the storage material. Like we want to store more energy, we want to store more hydrogens to generate more energy for the complete world to go. So you can see that if we increase the surface area by making a device smaller and smaller, we can have higher storage capacity. So this makes a huge contribution to the scientists, and you can see that this is a simple calculations you can make, that if the diameter is of 1 nanometer, the specific surface area is about 660 meters square per gram, and the surface energy is 1.4. So it is like 10 raised to power of 4 calories per molecule. Surface energy is like this. You can see that for 1 cubic centimeters of the substance with the particles of 1 micrometer diameter, if we consider, then the surface in 1 meter square, whereas for a substance of the same volume of 1 cubic centimeter having the particles of 10 nanometer diameter, the surface area is 10 meters square. So you can see that how much is the change in the surface area, how much is the change in surface area. You can see from here that with the decreasing amount of, that is the diameter decreases, the surface area increases, specific surface area increases a huge amount. This is 0.66 and this is 660. So you can see a huge order of difference in the specific surface area. If you consider the energy, you can see the energy also increases by 10 raised to power of 4. So there is a drastic change. This science, that is the nanoscience and technology, people just make use of this science by increasing these two factors, which is extremely helpful for any industries, for any applications. So again, I would like to say that where we are using this surface phenomenon, where exactly we can expose this gain in the surface energies. You can see here 30% of the atoms in the nanoparticles reside as the defect sites at the surface, giving rise to large functional groups. Now this is very, very important. When it gets or generates the functional groups, more and more particles or more and more materials can have a ligand interactions. So the chemical interactions, chemical reactivity increases a lot. You can see that with this concept, this is used in petroleum industries for the purifications of the crude oils, and 40% increase in the yield has been recorded or reported by these technologies, and this is extremely helpful for, you can see the petroleum, which is again a huge market. This has helped, this simple technology has helped. Now coming to the volume effect, like when I say that it is the surface effect, so obviously the volume remaining the constant, but it is not like that it is not contributing to the surface. You can see that it is the material as a whole is the volume, but when we put it into a nano size, then the contribution exactly is happening through the volumetric effect. We call it to be as a Cuba effect. So you can see that what exactly is happening, the confinement, that means the particles, when it is going to the nanoscale, then the confinement of the electrons takes place, and this is highly affecting the band structures. So the transitions of the electrons from the energy through the energy bands highly affect over here, and this effect we call it to be as a Cuba effect, which was given, you can see, in 1962, which is long back, but they were not understanding that it will work through the nano also. But when we did these nanomaterials, when we have miniaturized the size, then we have seen that these Cuba effects have drastically changed the electronic band structures. What exactly is mean is that the energy difference of successive electronic levels are no longer the small enough, but they are compared to the other energies like thermal energy, electronic Zeeman energy, nuclear Zeeman energy, and so on. So you can see that basically the inter-energy states, you can see their differences are no more as small as an ignorable. So now the thing is that we have to consider the electronic transitions, the energy levels through which are transmitting from one energy levels to other energy levels. Now they have a very significant contribution in terms of the energy distribution, in terms of the transport of the electrons, in terms of the conductions of the electrons. So you can see that this is related to the free electron models, and in the free electron models you can see that the average energy spacings increases as the number of the atoms get reduced. So you can see the spacings, these are the inter-energy level spacings. You can see that there is a drastic change in this spacings of energy levels when we go for nanoscale or the reduction of the size, and it is in nanoscale. Try to understand, like here even a small atom, even a small molecule is getting displaced, the total energy of the system is distorted, and we can see the changes in the different properties of the material as a whole. So here you can see this is the Fermi potential, which is of several electron volts, and this is the number of the particles. Again, a small numerical expressions for this. If you see 10 raised to power of 14 atoms, the delta, the shift, energy shift is 10 raised to power of minus 4 electron volts. Whereas for 10 raised to power of 2 atoms, this delta gets reduced to 10 raised to power of minus 2. You can see that how there is change. If you see the change, that if the atom number is higher, then delta is lower, and if the atom number is less, then the delta increases. So this is the concept which actually now people started thinking what exactly is happening. If you are reducing the size, basically we are making this, we are playing now with the energy states. We are playing now with the energy states, and this is called as the quantum size effect. The quantum size effect. Now this slide and the next slide I would like to discuss about how the size induce a metal to get transferred to an insulator. Now this is a very beautiful thing. You can see just reducing the size, what we can do, we can exactly change the nature of the materials, exactly change the property of this materials from a high conducting, which are the metals basically, and then they goes to insulators. So this transition can be occurring when we are reducing the size. So you can see this is a bulk metal whose diameter is about 10 raised to power of 4 angstrom. The QO gap is 10 raised to power of minus 6 K. Whereas here if you see that the metal cluster nanoparticles as the diameter are getting reduced is approximately 10 raised to power of 4 to 10 raised to power of 2 angstrom, and then 10 raised to power 2 to 10 angstrom. QO gap you can see is gradually getting changed here, and it is minus 6A. If you see, it is 10 raised to power 3. That means the spacing between the energy levels are increasing. Now if the spacings between the energy levels are increasing, obviously the electron have to have a high energy to get transferred from the valence band to that of the conduction band. So this picture is basically showing you for a perfect metal. If you see that the Fermi energy level is over here and its valence band is completely filled and the conduction band is totally empty. But as we go from a bulk material to that of the nanoparticles, nanomaterials, you see that this gap comes into the picture, and you can see this energy increases, and so here this goes to infinite. So we call it to be like when the energy band gap opens up, we see that the metal get transferred to semiconductor get transferred to that of the insulators. So the gap increases and the material goes from the highly conducting to that of the insulating. In semiconductors, if we see that it is initially also there is a gap over here, whereas this gap gradually increases, and you can see the bulk semiconductor goes to semiconductor nanocrystals, these occupied to unoccupied levels, and in an atomic level if you go, that means far more reduction if you do in the size. This is a huge amount of difference over there. So you can see that it goes to insulator. So this is very nice thing that is happening over here. Now coming to the density of the states. Now since we are talking about the electronic transitions, we also talk about the confinement of the electrons, how they are confined. Now the thing is that in terms of nanosciences or the nanotechnologies, we have to have different configurations of the nanomaterials. That means somewhere we need like optical fibers if we want to do, then we have to make a one-dimensional structure for that. So in that case, the confinement of the particles, confinement of the electrons would have to be tuned out, and all these terms, that is electronic transitions, can be tuned accordingly, so that the signal can be transferred through a long wire from one point to the other point. Again, if you could see that graphene types of the materials, where this is a two-dimensional materials, the applications are required where you have to have a long sheet and having a continuous conduction through this long sheet. Then you see that according to applications, the nanomaterials or the nanostructures can be tuned so as to define the electronic transitions and the properties. So density of states plays very important role in that case, where the electrons confinement, the geometrical confinement is extremely important over here. You can see that these are the degree of freedom I have tried to summarize in a single slide. I hope you understand this. Like if we consider the 3D bulk material, where the particles are free to move in all directions. So in that case, this is the density of the state, and it just acts, the electrons concerned with the particles just acts like a free electron motions, and this is the density of states where e raised to power of half is happening over here. Whereas over here, for the two-dimensional directions, we can see, which we call as 2D quantum wells, this is like, it does not depend on the change in the electron or energy. It is a constant, so you have a step-like configurations over here. Whereas in this case, where it is in one-dimensional quantum wires, then it is somewhat like it is e raised to power of minus half. So the confinement is over here, and you can see it goes to an infinite states over here. Whereas in the zero dimensions, or where we call it to be as a spherical particles, nanoparticles of complete spheres, then no free motion is possible, and in all the 3 degrees of freedom, the electron is confined, and you can see where the energy states or the density of the states are given by this delta function. So you can see that this is extremely important slide over here, which explains you how the density of the states is occurring over here. I think here I missed one half. Please make a half over here, and this is proportional to e raised to power of half. Now coming to the summary of this, what exactly we are trying to do by this previous slides, you see here that this is the quantum confinement and the dimensionality. So you can see this is the energy terms, and this is the density of the state. So gradually you see this is the complete free electron theories, that is the bulk material, where we are considering that there is no restriction in any of the directions, and then the electron can flow or move freely in all the 3 degrees of freedom. Here we get the quantum well, where it is in terms of the steps. We get the quantum wire, where you can see it is some kind of exponential, but at certain values it is going to infinite like this. And then the quantum dots are over here, so you can see which are the delta functions over here. So this is how the confinements are going on, and the physicist or the chemist and the other people have tried to confine the particles, tried to confine the size such that the electronic transitions can take place, and you can have the applications of your own desired applications. Now coming to the semiconductors, because it's a huge industry right now. So as the particle size gets reduced, the quantum size effect starts dominating. That's what we have explained. Quantum confinement starts initiating. restrictions of the electronic wave functions to the smaller and smaller regions of space starts originating. Band structure now get modified not from the band but band to bond approaches, because we have confined the space. Now the electronic bands are no more that confined or no more that important, whereas they emerge to the bond approaches. Now they emerge to the bond approaches, and then the linear combinations of the atomic orbitals, these theories are now getting dominating, and we are gradually concising our electrons in such a way that we have to think now, okay, molecular bonding theory is coming into picture, their interactions we have to understand, and the characterization tools I have already said this is not that easy to visualize at the nanoscale. We have to go through the electrons microscope for visualizing, understanding and approaching the theoretical or verifying or validating the theoretical approach. So you can see that the band gap tuning, as I have said, that if we are concerned about the optical industries or the optical, like the total display units, everything we can tune up using the band gap tuning, where again you see that it depends on the cluster radius. So this I have borrowed from the book, and you can see that as the diameter increases, the band gap decreases. That's what we have already explained, and these are few materials where the band gap is actually changing over here, and they are shifting. They are shifted by the diameter of the material. So you can understand that these are the very beautiful theories that the nanomaterials can be or making use of nowadays, and we, after popularizing, after the things out, we all are trying to miniaturize our system or devices, and we are making use of these nanoparticles because we are increasing the surface, volume remaining the same, and we can handle with a very small weight or small mass, or you can say we can have a very compact system in that way. Now, few of the properties that I was telling you, that how these are changing. So you can see here the effect of size on melting point. Now, I would like to tell you that even I am wearing a gold bangles. You can see this is a bulk gold material, and you can see the color is also like yellow, shining yellow color. At the same time, you can see it is not getting melted. You can see that this is the bulk gold material at room temperature is solid. Whereas you can see that if you synthesize the gold nanoparticles in your laboratory, which is a routine practical for our MSc students. So in that case, if you see there, then you see the gold nanoparticles are ideally liquid at room temperature, and even the color is very different. So you can see that this is the beauty of nanoparticles that is happening over here, and this nanoparticle, this plot actually tells you that as the radius of the particle increases, the melting point increases for this material, and you can see that this relation is actually telling you that the term is dependent on Tm, where Tm is the melting point of the bulk materials, whereas the Tm surface is the melting point of the surface. So we can understand that when the heat is given to the system, first the outside layers or the surface starts initiating or the starts melting, and then gradually the volumetric effect comes, whereas it is also not like that. There is an interplay of the volume and the surface effect that I have explained over here. So depending on the enthalpy of fusion and R being the radius of the particle, as R decreases, this also decreases. So you can see that how beautifully this plot tells you, and it is not only for that of the gold. I have also mentioned other materials like lead, copper, bismuth, silicon, all show similar trends, and this is again a very important thing that we can visualize very easily in our laboratory with the gold nanoparticle. nanoparticles. So the bulk gold is basically solid at room temperatures, but gold nanoparticles is liquid at room temperature. There are so many observations that are there which actually tells you that when the dimension is reduced, its properties very much drastically differ. So like the melting point, like that, another example we can cite here, that is the magnetic properties. You can see we are all aware of magnetic particles because the MRI, like bioimaging, everything is based on the magnetic nanoparticles. So what exactly we can gain out of this? With decrease in the particle size, the hysteresis loop gets reduced, the coercivity and the remnants also decreases. Now what exactly? Now magnetic effect is basically dependent on the spin flipping. So you can see that if we go to the domain theory, you can see that when the particle size decreases, then the domain size decreases and the magnetic domains comes into the picture, and we can ideally go to a situation when it can be represented by a single spin. The total system can be represented by a single spin, and we call it to be as superparamagnetic nanoparticles. So this is the beauty of these things, where we can have a very good switch. Magnetic switches can be used, or maybe like from the external, if the spines are used. That is the theory that the magnetic MRIs are using over here, is that when we are using the external magnetic field and a particular magnetic field, it can have a switching from one point to the other point. So the magnetic switches examples are very well known nowadays, and the people are making use of this, changing the properties, magnetic properties, when we go to the nanomaterials, magnetic nanoparticles. So some of the exotic changes in the properties due to the reduction of the sizes could be here, like high sintering rate. We can increase the sintering rate, increase ductility in the ceramics even at low temperatures, high mechanical strength. You can say I almost covered all the aspects of the applications. We can have an increased micro hardness, enhanced cell diffusions, large specific heat because of excess of entropy, large thermal expansions. So I have almost used all the aspects of the applications that could be explored, and Nano has not left it over to any of these applications. So we are here, the total scientific community are here to just clustering around the clusters, as I have said. Everybody are trying to contribute in their own aspects to the world of science and technology in a reduced packets. So you can see here that with this, I would like to go forward with a few of the nanomaterials that our laboratory is actually doing over here. These are very recent applications that we are exploring over here. You can see that we are most interested in the nanobio interaction studies, because as we know that ultimately health is the wealth. So our lab is contributing to the flexible electronics. Here also we are trying to explore the areas where nano devices can be used for the bio applications. We are very much interested in understanding the nano-bio interaction studies for bioimaging, biophotonics, and ultimately what the whole world is now under trouble, that is the virus inhibitor. In particular, I would show you one of the very recent work that we have explored as the COVID-19 inhibitor with the nanomaterials. Now this is the first work that I would like to say, that is the flexible electronics. We are making use of the graphene. Mostly I would be showing a very big part of our laboratory with all my students are getting involved in making this kind of flexible electronics. You can see, and there we have tried to use the LED bulbs, that is the energy generating materials over here, and we could successfully do with these films of the graphene films, making use of this. This has been published in 2D Materials 2019 as well as in 2017. Now this work again is a very wonderful work. Why I mean by that, that's very near to my heart, because you know that whatever we are doing, mostly the nanoparticles are synthetic nanoparticles, right? Synthetic nanoparticles. A bigger aspects of this is that the disadvantages of synthetic nanoparticles, that the nanoparticles are toxic, first point. Second point is that we have to work hard to maintain these nanoparticles. We have to work hard to maintain these nanoparticles because these can have some side effects. So this particular work that has been performed by one of my students, that is Prithvi over here, that we have synthesized nanoparticles from the waste of silk. Like the silk cocoons, we know that huge textile industries are basically making use of silk, and India is one of the biggest producers of the silk. But a part of the silk, after extracting the fibers from there, they just make it as a waste. So out of that, we have synthesized the silk nanoparticles using microwave, which is again a very simple technology over here, and you can see that how these microwave radiations are making changes in the structure of this silk, and with this change in the structures, we are gaining in the crystallinity, we are gaining in the micro hardness, we can gain in the nano hardness, and we are getting a very stable nanoparticles, and you can see in the biophotonics, we can see this kind of contributions from the silk nanoparticles. So this is the device that we have fabricated over here. This is the device, and electrochemically we have tried to put this is with the light, radiations of the light, we could get a change in the current, photocurrent, the change in the photocurrent, and this one is extremely important. You can see that we can have a very good transitions from the low current to the high current. So we can make use of this as photonic devices, as a sensor, as many other applications, and these are wearable. You can see that this is so lightweight. These are so lightweight, and we can make use of this, like these devices. We can wear it on your arms, and we can have the sensors carried out with us. Next one that I would like to, and that was a very recent work. You can see it is being published in 2020. Then let us go for this work, which is again a very nice work, and I'm very happy to share with you. This is like we all know that mitochondria is the energy hub in our body, and this is where we get the energy from. This is where the mitochondria generates the energy, and this is the powerhouse of the body, and this energy helps us to do all our daily work routines. So, and at the same time, we have made use of some nanoparticles which are extremely used in our daily lives, like TiO2 nanoparticles. However, TiO2 nanoparticles are toxic. So what we have tried to do is that, and in the pharmaceuticals, or maybe like in the you can say the powders, talcum powders, everywhere the use of TiO2 is taking place. With this huge use, we have tried to reduce the toxicity such that the electron hole pairs combination that the TiO2 gives us for the transitions for any bioactive materials or activities. We have tried to reduce the toxicity by putting iron into it, and we have seen, you can see that these are healthy mitochondria, these are fragmented mitochondria, whereas after using or engineering the TiO2 nanoparticles, we can see the change in the mitochondrial potential, membrane potential, MMPs, mitochondrial membrane potentials, and the ROS generations. There's a huge change that we can reduce the toxicity of TiO2. However, the functionality of TiO2 sustains even if we use it in our daily life. Now coming to the next part, that has been again a very recent publications that my students have come up with. This is engineering of gadolinium decorated graphene oxide nanosheets for multimodal imaging. Now you can see that the lanthanide based materials are very much used in the MRI devices. They are very much used in the bioimaging, like the optical coherence tomography. So you can see this is the doctor scan. If you see here, this is a doctor scan that the chicken breast tissues can be imaged. The chicken breast tissues can be imaged, and we can use this material, lanthanide based nanomaterials, for the bioimaging, that is optical coherence tomographic analysis that we can do. This is the MRI and this is drug delivery. So you can see that we could use the same material, we can make use of the same material for 3 different functionality, and we have successfully, without any toxicity. Obviously that gadolinium is highly toxic when it gets itched out during application, so we have taken care of that. If you go through this paper, you will see that we have taken care of the toxicity of the material, and you can see that we can have a good laser imaging over here, and this gives the optical emission spectroscopy to show that just putting a laser of certain wavelength, we can have up conversions, we can have down conversions of the materials, which actually is correlated to the bioimaging part. So when we induce these materials into our bodies, that can assist, that can increase the contrast of the imaging, and we can have a better view of those materials, better view of those areas in the body which has to be properly diagnosed. Now coming with this, I would like to tell you like few interesting examples appearing in the news, because now, as we say, that everybody are suffering from the pandemic of COVID-19. So I thought I will take the very recent achievements that we could get in our laboratory with the controlling or the preventions of this nanoparticle, preventions of this COVID-19 virus. So I thought I will put a part of my lecture on the use of this nanomaterials for as a virus inhibitors. So the interesting news that came over here is this one. You can see this has been published in SES Nano, and it is just published in August 2020, that is just last month. And you can see the people have used the graphene nano sheets, the use of graphene nano sheets as a very challenging material as the inhibitor of this COVID-19 virus. So they have made it with the bacterial killing and the laser-induced graphene mask. They have used as the antibacterial phenomenon to show the antibacterial phenomenon, but they have not used the interaction studies, and they have not mentioned the interaction studies. Whereas our lab, this is what our lab is doing here. That is, the students have been doing the interaction studies of this COVID-19, interactions of the graphene nano sheets with the COVID-19, and we could find that the graphene nano sheets can be used as like a mask or embedded inside the mask, and they can be a very, very good inhibitor of COVID-19 with a huge binding energies. So you can go over here, and this has been accepted in just 2020, just this month only, just the DOI has come, and I am very happy to share this achievement of my students for this work, and I appreciate that they have made a success, a huge success for in this pandemic situations. As you know that we cannot use the laboratories here, we cannot use, but they have made these interaction studies. And if you see here, this is like the computational studies where we have experimentally synthesized the graphene sheets, and we have experimentally exfoliated the different sheets, number of the layers of the graphene, and we have studied computationally that taking the parameters of these experimental values of sheet thickness, sheet length, and everything to use in this computational study here. And I would like to say that here, if you see the binding energies, that the binding energies we are achieving is quite good, and it is very, very important that the change in the binding energies after binding with this residues, the binding residues are also shown here, and these are the interaction probable interactions. These are the interactions that has been achieved, and using this now we are going to do some laboratory work for getting the experimental results, the inhibition factors out of it. This is a small video here. I would like to show this video. And so this nanomaterials would be, I hope this would be very informative for you, and that will help us to design the experiments, that will help us to design this engineering of the nanomaterials, and we can make use of this for our applications. Thank you so much. I will send the video, and I would request the organizing committee to please share this to all of you, so you can also see how we have made the interaction studies. So my request is that if you are at all interested, please contribute to the society by understanding the nano-bio interactions. Handling of the nanoparticles is also extremely important, like because nanoparticles are very, very toxic, nanoparticles are extremely toxic, so just don't play out of it, but we have to have certain means to handle these nanoparticles. In the laboratory also we have to find way, and lab safety have to be mentioned over here, so we make every possible precautions to handle nanoparticles in a large scale, and this is how we can generate, this is how we can make use of nanoparticles. See, the use of nanoparticles is huge, and so I have tried to summarize few of the examples for you where we are using in our daily routine work or PhD problems with the nanoparticles interactions with this bio interactions. So do make use of this fundamentals of use of nanoparticles, their properties, make use of their properties and all those stuff, and try to understand or make use of these nanoparticles for the betterment of the society. Thank you so much. If possible, I will show you the videos, or else I would request to the organizers to please share it with you. So this is the video. You can see over here, I've already shown the values, computational values. So this is the video I would like to show you. So you can see this is a structure of the COVID-19. This is the structure of COVID-19, and you can see the graphene sheet over here that we have tried to interact with the COVID, and what they are doing, they are binding. Their binding sites, if you see here, it will just come, you can see how, yeah, these are the binding sites and the values with which they are binding. These are the different protein, the protein that is M-protein of this virus. We are trying to inhibit them by binding them, by blocking up their receptors, by blocking up these receptors in these two-dimensional structures. So you can see here, this is a beautiful picture that we have modeled over here, and we have really shown that we can get a huge success with this graphene, as making use of this graphene. If you see in the mask or in the PPE kit, if you can coat the graphene nano sheets, if you coat this graphene nano sheets, how beautifully they will capture, and they will inactivate, they will disable this virus, inhibit this virus further internalization through the cells, because you know that we are seeing that this virus is actually attacking us, and they are penetrating inside the cells and making us fall sick. So you can see that this beautiful picture, if you see, this has been modeled by my students in my own laboratory, and also this is a collaborative work with Gujarat University and Central University of Gujarat and the Gujarat University. Both are working on this project, and this is the contribution that we could give in this pandemic situation to this world. Thank you so much for listening, having patience and understanding the things, the fundamentals of nanoparticles and all those aspects. Thank you so much, and you can reach me through my email address. Thank you so much.